ready to go? Well, good afternoon. We are convening the Board of Selectmen regular meeting, January the 4th, 2021. The first item will be to review the minutes of the 4th of January, the regular meeting on the 4th of January. May we have a motion, please?
Second?
Okay, discussion.
Yes, please. Under 4, old business, COVID. Last paragraph. This is my request to consider holding all meetings virtually. And in the minutes, it indicates that the selectmen decided against it. And that is not what we decided.
Well, I think we decided we weren't going to encourage all the meetings to go virtual.
No, we had a discussion. I thought we should. Chris suggested we leave it up to the chairs, but there was no decision that we made.
Right. Well, okay, we can phrase it that...
I would just leave it. The selectmen discuss the issues involved with holding all the meetings virtually, and we can continue to discuss it.
I don't know if... I don't know if it's something we said we'll continue to discuss. I guess it's sort of implicit, but I think...
Well, we did at one point, so we did at one point have that indicate we could consider it. And finally, I just
well,
said,
let's,
I'm asking
maybe
for
we
the
can agree that there was no board decision about it, official decision. I think we had different opinions.
You said we're going to leave it up to the chair of the committee.
That was your suggestion. We didn't have a vote on anything.
No, I know we didn't have a vote.
I like Chris's suggestion. I just think we need, at that meeting, we didn't have a decision. We can certainly make that decision at this meeting if you'd like. But
Well, we did discuss it, that's for
we
sure.
certainly did. That's why I suggested the last sentence read, the selectmen discuss the issues involved with holding all the meetings virtually. And I thought that might cover everything.
Yeah, we didn't decide against it. We had a discussion.
Maybe we can just strike the last words and decide against it.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable?
Yep.
Say what you're suggesting.
I got the last word. Ended at virtually.
Yeah, that's fine too.
All participants are being asked to unmute themselves.
No.
2 weeks.
Oh, this...
All participants have been muted.
Okay.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Pardon?
That's all I had.
All right, with that modification, may we have a motion to approve the minutes? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Then we turn to the special meeting, which was the that was on January 11th. It was covered the police contract, the agenda for the town meeting, and a review of the budget for 22. We have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Any discussion?
I didn't know.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Very good, unanimous. And last is the special meeting on the 13th of January, which was a budget review.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, Chris, you all set?
I'm set.
Okay, that takes care of that. Now, the next item are the appointments for 2021. I believe you received a sheet, and hopefully the correct sheet, because there was an earlier one, but the...
Well, I have two sets, so which one was which? And then in my box today, there was, 3 other applications? So
Yeah, well, those are some of the forms. Let's see.
This is the one that I have. That agrees with yours. Dated January 2021. There's nothing else on it.
This one, I think the current one would have 3 people on economic development, whereas no, that's the same. No, that's wrong.
Well, actually, here's one that says 19th of January, so I guess this is today's. Obviously makes sense.
Yeah, but I want to make, because the
one in my box doesn't say that, Chris. So
I just got it out of the box.
yeah, I just got mine out of the box.
Oh,
It's not the same.
the current one should have Cable Advisory Council on it.
I have that.
Do you have that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the proper one. If it does not, that's an earlier version.
So what does it have on it?
The 5th line about Cable Advisory Council.
Okay.
Disregard the other one.
Jump.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Now, concerning economic development, we have an application for Maura Rowe, but I also understand, well, I was given an application for Sherry Cote, and I understand there may be yet another application for economic development from Frank Papalardo. So, you probably have not seen Sherry's application.
Oh, it's in our box.
That just came today then, yeah. And I understand Frank has submitted one, but I have not yet seen it, so I don't know how we want to handle this, but it appears that we have, we have Howard Margulis and David Rubino who are incumbents, and then Maura is, that seat that she's listed there is open, and then these other 2 applications apparently are pending. I don't know whether it would be, the board would like to wait and review the other 2 applications and compare and contrast before we make a decision on that or not.
I would like to move forward. And hopefully, maybe these folks that come in could be considered as alternates.
Mm-hmm. I think we know Frank, and we know, actually, Ms. Cote applied for the regional tourism, so we have seen her form in the past. Give you an opinion, Chris? Do you
So
want
we don't want to wait for Frank's, which I don't have a problem with. He really didn't get in time. But yeah, there's 2 here to vote on. Pick one of the 2. Up to you guys. I mean, one's an old Raleigh resident, one's not even a resident of town.
And I'm noting that Kathleen Tracy, who applied some time ago for the Soundview Commission, isn't on here.
But Mike,
What's that?
if you could swing that a little to your right.
Kathleen Tracy applied some time ago to be on the Soundview Commission.
I don't even see that one.
I know, it's not on our list.
So do you want to, how about then, when we check on that one and check on the other one and put these two on hold till next time?
Okay.
If we have two that's missing, why don't
Yeah,
we
well,
vote on it, and then we
yeah.
can vote on all the rest tonight?
Well, actually, the three alternates for Soundview are incumbents. So there, it's not like anybody's left that at this juncture.
Okay.
But
Well, why don't-
Didn't you say one?
I mean, we don't, I thought that David Kelsey was leaving. I think you guys mentioned
He
that.
hasn't, I haven't seen the resignation as yet, so that may happen shortly. I think he was contemplating it, but I had not seen his letter, and, we'd like to get a letter first.
Well, why don't we wait till him with his letter in it, and we'll wait on the Soundview, and we'll wait on EDC, do all the rest. We can wait on those two till next time, and then.
So the proposal is to wait on the three alternates for Soundview and the economic development with Mora Row until we,
I think he's suggesting all three economic development.
what's that?
I think he's suggesting.
No, I meant the three Soundview Commission and
And just Mora?
well, that's the one that's open, right? That's the
Yes.
spot that's open, the other two aren't open.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
unless you want.
All right, so-
Two positions.
As opposed, I think in the past, we've kind of gone down by the office and so forth, and it seems to me we could consider the whole slate with exceptions and make one motion for the whole slate as opposed to going down each board and commission and employee.
Well, okay. But what about the other two applicants here we have an applicant for open space and planning. Are they on this?
They,
Look here.
yeah,
Okay.
Matthew Ward is on planning,
Or in Denoya.
and Denoya, I think I put their forms in your boxes.
Okay.
I'm not aware of other people
Okay.
looking for those. So,
Yeah, the only other thing we had in our box was somebody for the Halls Road Improvement Committee. I think Michelle sent it to us.
Which one's that? What's the name on that one?
Stephen Kelly.
Calcagney, oh, he's going
on
on,
open space right now.
he's just going on open space.
But he's asking apparently. that he also
I haven't
on
seen
Halls
that
Road.
even.
Well, Michelle sent it to us. Okay, so.
What's the date on it?
Well, this is dated January 15th.
Was this email?
Yes.
Well, we have
Was
to
he
consider
the
that
person that's on
later.
the open space now?
He's just being considered to be on open space as a regular member. And I
It
heard,
says on your previous service in Oldham Open Space Commission, so you must be an incumbent.
And then this is Halls Road?
Yes.
Is there an opening?
I don't think so.
I believe that, well, kind of what you
Well,
said
it's a
last
Halls
time,
Road
too.
committee. We ought to evaluate how many people are on the committee.
I think you added
We put Kelsey
Kelsey
on.
on, so I think they're also asking for Steve.
Well, since that's just coming in sort of after the fact, let's wait on that.
He'll be up.
But we could, if it's okay with you all, we could go down the various positions and names and see if there are any questions beside the ones we've already talked about, and then as opposed to voting so many times on each of these things, we could simply vote the slate.
Okay.
fine.
So, other than EDC and Sound View alternates, are you comfortable with the other positions?
Give me a second.
It's pretty much status quo.
A few changes, yeah.
Mostly we don't talk about.
Water pollution, for instance, Robert Nixon had been an alternate, and he's with the resignation of having a moment here. He's moving up to a regular position.
So will there be an alternate opening on that one then?
I think there are, yeah. And actually what we can do is depending on what we do tonight, these names can be put into the list and then we'll print off a new list because we have a list with all the boards and commissions and the incumbents, and there are some vacancies. And then we can look at that.
Okay.
Well, I don't have a problem with the names on these lists.
I make a motion to appoint the slate as presented January 19th, 21.
Minus out.
Those minus the economic development.
With the exception of one member of the Economic Development Commission and 3 seats on the Soundview Commission. Alternate.
Yeah, we should probably specify Maura Rose because there are
Right, that's the open position.
Yes.
well, there's a name there, just so it's not too
technically
confusing.
it's open, we haven't appointed her. So that's why we're not.
Well, everything, I guess when your term is ended, it's technically open.
Well, how about if we just appoint the slate except those 2 categories, and then we can then appoint the Economic Development Commission to 2 people separately, as a separate motion.
Sure. But I thought we were going to hold off on that, but.
Oh, I'm fine doing it either. It's getting confusing.
Yeah. Let's try simplifying it. Just
All right.
minus out. Technically, the name Maura Rowe, that's an open position. There's nobody there now.
That's
So,
right.
And then the
so let's
3
minus out the zoning, that economic thing.
alternates, the 3 of them,
And we'll hold off for the 3 alternates on.
till we see what that
I
settles
make a
out.
motion to pass everyone else but them, and we'll discuss the other 2 at the next selectment meeting.
Right. Okay, so my motion is that we motion to appoint all the positions for appointment on the January 2021 list as presented, with the exception of 1 position on the Economic Development Commission and the 3 alternate positions for Soundview Commission.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay.
So at next meeting, we'll check on these that we got in the mail, minus that Stephen, which is Halls Road, which Tim said we can have as many as we want, correct?
That's what he
Right, but I'll get the list of the current committees so that I don't think there's probably an optimal number we don't want to exceed.
Well, we can't make that up just because you may not want to add somebody. That would be unfair and unjust. And I'm just
Right,
gonna
but,
say that.
if you know what I'm getting at, we
It's
don't want to have it.
selective appointments.
Okay, so I'll see if I can catch up with that Calcagny one, because I haven't seen that. Okay. Next is the COVID. As of the 17th, we're at 222 cases I wouldn't say I guess it is year to date. No, it was when they started counting last, probably February, March time frame. And as we know, I think Connecticut is seeing an uptick as a result of the holidays and just generally in concert with the state of Connecticut. So we're still at 2 deaths associated with this, so that has not changed since quite some time ago. Michelle Noren has redrafted the protocol for the town employees, and I just have seen this. There are some edits that have come in from yourself, Mary Jo, and if you have any comments on it, but I think we want to have Dave look at this, and then hopefully this can be finalized fairly soon and distributed. I know that we have Ledge Light put out an interesting color coordinated. It's sort of a sequence diagram that shows if you experience symptoms and so forth, depending on how things go, it sends you down different critical paths to an end result. So I would say probably within a week we should be able to get this finalized for everyone's review, and then we can get it out to people. Along that line, the FEMA has approved our grant from the federal government. The costs which they approved are $116,381. The grant is 75% of that, so that's $87,286, we'll call it. And what Dave said is that the submittals were approved by FEMA except for $1,600, which sounds like a pretty good result. The non-federal share, the 25%, which is not reimbursable, is $29,095. As you know, we did receive word that the CARES Act funding would be in the neighborhood, I think, of $46,000, something like that. So that would take care of the 25% non-grant from FEMA, plus any other things that we had. So I think we're in pretty good shape on that round. Now that takes us through, I believe that takes us through the end of the year, I think. And no?
Well, you're just talking apples and oranges. The FEMA that you're talking about goes to June 30th. But the 47 we just got through the state goes through December 31st.
Oh, for the CARES.
So we still don't know if we're going to get any more FEMA for the past half
So,
of the year.
so the second half of the calendar year from FEMA would be another submission at July 1 through December 31, 6-month interval. I think a lot of the upfront expenditure we experienced was before that, so certainly there would be a lot of police and other activity that would be a labor quotient, but in terms of supplies and plastic barriers and all that sort of thing, there's the July 1 through December 31 FEMA would be, I expect, a smaller number than the first part. Obviously, we're in January and we are continuing to spend funds, particularly for our greeter and other things, I'm sure. So we're not, obviously, if we don't know what's going to happen with the second half of the calendar year, we don't know what's going to happen this quarter in a way of FEMA and so forth. So we are, and then of course as we come into the second quarter of the year, we will be ramping up for the beaches and all that. So it'll also depend on whether the governor extends the executive orders and his whole state of emergency type declaration. Because if he does not, then I think there will be no further funding. If he continues, then likely there should be. So that's a bit unknown right now.
Can you address vaccinations?
Vaccinations? Yeah, the vaccinations are winding up for the phase 1A, which would be the healthcare responders, the medical responders, particularly the people who actually respond to patients and so forth, and then the long-term nursing homes, the residents and the staff. So I think that's reaching conclusion. They've allowed part of the phase 1B, which includes a lot of different people, but they did include people over 75 years of age to be able to sign up. I think maybe owing to confusion and who knows what, there have been some people who've signed up that shouldn't have, but I think they're trying to iron that out. But hopefully they'll have it once the seniors over 75 are moving through the program and getting toward conclusion. They'll open it up for whatever next group they will decide. I think it's at this point it would likely be first responders and a whole variety of other populations. So I don't think we have clarity on who will be next after the seniors. I think it's going pretty well. I think people using Hartford Healthcare or Yale New Haven have found it working reasonably well with the computer. I myself tried the VAMS, that Vaccination Administration Management System, and that I thought was very complicated. So, but I think people are signing up, and that over 75 population is starting to go through the process. So what happens next, I don't think we know as yet.
Well, we got a letter from Ledgelight that said they were going to start the vaccination clinic for Ledgelight Health District. It's going to go up on VAMS tomorrow for 75 and over at the Groton Municipal District. I believe there'll be 2 clinics available next week. I want to say Tuesday and Friday, but I didn't bring the printout. But you have to go on starting tomorrow to register for those 2 clinics. So that's good news. And as I think the email said, to send it out to anybody that you know that might be eligible. So I know Dave sent that to me, and I don't know, I sent it out to a bunch of people, but that's good news. That's the first Ledgelight Health District vaccination clinic that I'm aware of. And I also know that they are planning on setting up one that will take place at Waterford Municipal Complex, but I don't have any specifics on that.
Well, I know there is certain of the injections are being done at the exit 2 on Route 9. There's a medical building right near there, and that is working as well. So that's very convenient.
Then Dave has mentioned to me that FEMA will be, he got a notice today that FEMA may be reimbursing municipalities for communication, that they've provided some funding for communication for vaccination, so that if the board wants to set up some kind of communication format to share this information with residents, it may be reimbursable, whatever costs, whether that be, we need a PC or some kind of software that could be submitted for a reimbursable expense. So he just told me that today, so maybe you could follow up with him on that?
Yeah, we could give people information. Obviously, these systems have the sign-up feature, so it's working now, and I expect we can give people that information. I think the sign up for myself, it was, I think it was under 10 minutes. It was quite remarkable, so not bad. But getting the information to folks, because there's probably a whole variety of places such as Ledge Light and other places. So
Yeah, I guess in his mind, if we wanted to be kind of a clearinghouse so that
Yeah.
people get inundated if they know one place they can go to, or one day a week that they'll get the current information. But I think that needs to be considered. The good news is that it would be considered reimbursable, which is fantastic.
okay.
And then lastly, I was wondering if this might be the time for us to discuss going virtual for our meetings for COVID.
Okay. Okay, turning to project updates.
Are you going to address that?
The what?
I was asking if we could address our discussion here on going virtual due to COVID.
Oh. Okay. I think if boards and commissions have a big group and they want to do virtual, they can. I think a number of boards and commissions are meeting, and maybe even committees. In the town hall, you can use this telephone system. There, as I said before, when we go virtual with video and so forth, you need, Michelle has to set it up, and that can be done. There is an extra cost to that, and depending on the skill of the host, the chairman, that, you know, if it's just getting them started, that can be a fairly brief time. If it becomes, she would have to stay with somebody for the duration of the meeting, that would be more significant. So, for smaller groups, I'm hoping that they would consider meeting as we do here. You have plenty of place, even Harbor Management had a pretty good number of members and some members of the public as well, and I think they were spaced out under the occupancy factor and so on. And if the phone is also a resource, so the phone is a great way to do it. So I think we would just hope that people would think about the logistics of it.
So I'm taking that to mean that you are not in favor of holding virtual meetings even for our board.
Say that, Mike.
You're not in favor of having virtual meetings then for our board?
I would say we obviously can do virtual. We won't say don't do virtual, but I just would appreciate the people who could meet here, if it's a smaller group and they can use the phone, that would probably not incur the same costs and so forth that the other would. So.
But what about this board? What about us?
I like it this way. If you all don't, then
It doesn't bother me. I mean, how do you feel? I mean,
My suggestion was, given the surge, that we go virtual, that we call in. I think it sets a good example. I mean, Tim doesn't wear his mask. We're supposed to, in phase 2-1B, whatever, all be wearing masks at a meeting. I'd rather go virtual, at least until the surge is over in February.
well, we could have you on the phone perhaps and do it that way. I don't know whether you feel the same way, but
it really, I don't, it doesn't bother me either way. I mean, if Mary Jo
I think
more
it sets,
comfortable to,
I think it sets a bad example. We're in a surge. The town numbers are not going in the right direction. You're going to be the first person I know that is getting a vaccine.
I already have
We're
mine.
all, huh?
I already have
Oh,
mine.
you're the fire department.
So,
But most of us slugs are going to be waiting a while. And if we do get this, we're all going to be having to be in quarantine, and that would be a
well,
problem.
if you go to the A&P, you're likely to get sick too.
I'm very careful about where I go these days until I get my vaccine.
So,
We're taking people's temperature during the day, we do nothing at night. I mean, what does that do?
Well, they took ours here. Didn't they take yours?
I snuck in, I guess, without But it's before 4, but meetings after 4 are not being regulated.
That's where it's left up to the
well,
chairman of the
I think the whole thing says 6-foot separation. I mean, right here we have a couple of people. They're plenty far apart. I think we might be slightly less than 6 feet, but I think you lose a lot on the phone. If you do a WebEx, then that's going to, that's possible, but I think for 3 people, we should be able to do it. And if you can go around the corner if you feel uncomfortable, but with the 6-foot separation, it's very difficult to hear you, so that's why I don't wear the mask, because I'm afraid it's going to be so muffled that with the television or the speaker, it's not going to come through very well. So that's my outlook at it. We've been doing it quite well for a year.
Here, but I understand and respect your thoughts, Mary Jo. If you want to call in.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
That's fine.
I might do that then. Thank you.
All right, next up is project updates, the Soundview sidewalks. Mary Jo.
We met last Tuesday. It was sort of a preparation for getting ready to submit our package to the DOT for approval for the sidewalk project. And we're still waiting on the easement from the Easy Mart. I know, Tim, you were going to go down there. I went down there. I picked up that there was clear verbal commitment to sign it, but I think there was concern whether getting witnesses and getting it notarized. So I think you and I talked about maybe we could bring a notary to them to ease it.
I don't know.
Well, it's getting late.
Well, I don't see why it's so difficult for someone to get to a notary.
Well, I know you were going to talk to them. Maybe you could encourage
I'll
them.
go down tomorrow morning.
I was not successful.
And say, come on.
And that is holding up our submission to DOT. Theoretically, DOT does sort of a checkbox approval, so it should go relatively quickly, at which point we will get approval to go out to, or advertise and go out to bid. We'll have a pre-bid meeting. We'll meet down at the Soundview Community Center and walk the project. And there'll be a period then for requests for information. The bidders will request copies of the project through Seal and Old Saybrook, who we've used before. And then again, there'll be a date to be determined when the bids have to be in. They'll be opened here. Then the bids will go out, the lowest 3 bids will go to BSE. We'll do an assessment and evaluation of the bidders. They'll present that information to Tim and recommend the low bidder to be approved. And at that point, the town's typical project processes take over. The low bidder would get their insurance and all that, and a contract be signed, and hopefully that can move quickly since the draft contract is in the bid package. So I'm hoping that moves things along on that end. And the committee decided to move forward as best as possible to maintain a start in March, and hopefully it's just a sidewalk project. 8 weeks will be sufficient to complete the project. And if it turns out in the bids that that's not going to be possible, or then we'll make a decision at that point whether we need to delay to the fall. But we've delayed already once, and people want to get it done. So So then, once we go out to bid and we get approval to bid, that allows the town also to go out for another connectivity grant. So that's the other reason we want to get this moving. The state already had a community connectivity grant process just completed, so this would open up the door to the town to apply for other grants if we get this thing underway.
And the grant, once DOT approves, is that when you can go out for another one?
I think we have to, it depends. I've heard two things. I think it has to be, we have to have that form that says approved. But if you read the booklet, it says we actually have to get a contract. So I think there's a little gray area. But right in that period of time, that'll allow us to then...
So it might involve having the contractor selected as well?
Yeah, I'm a little gray on that because it depends on what you read. Craig Babowitz, who's our DOT contact, will let us know.
Yeah.
And this year the grants were more than what we got. They increased the grant, I think, to $600,000. So.
Well, we'd definitely be able to do like the 156 section.
Well, we could
If
apply.
we got the second part.
Right. And on that end, I know that I want to believe I think it was the Soundview Commission meeting of a couple months ago. David Kelsey had suggested we just budget for that instead of getting a grant. So.
Well, I was going to make that recommendation. Depends on what it was. Maybe the Ferry Road one, budget out of the town thing, because that'll be shorter. And if we don't get the state involved, then we don't have to make,
Yeah, well, depending where the numbers come in, it'll be like an accordion. Either we do more or less of Route 156, and that's predicated on behind the sidewalk work on Hartford Avenue and everything else. So once we know, when we get some bids in, that'll be pretty clear.
Mm-hmm. Now, with any of our engineering work that we've already done on the sidewalks down the Hartford Avenue 156, will that eliminate engineering work?
Yes.
Say for phase
Yes.
part 2?
Yes.
So that will be already done?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because even the cost we paid BSC and then the administrative costs are for the whole job. So if we hypothetically didn't do any of 156, you'd have a pretty good savings on the construction management side. It might not be 50-50, but you wouldn't spend all of those dollars earmarked for that. So we should be in pretty good shape. And if DOT has really been bullish on the project, they might be happy to help us finish it up instead of trying to pay for it ourselves. So
is that all you're waiting for down there on the corner? Is it a notary? Is that basically?
They have to sign the easement.
And I'm sure somebody's got to have a conversation with the bank to make sure that's all in good shape.
But that doesn't hold up the submission to DOT.
Okay. Well, we'll impress on them that they're holding up the program here. Okay.
I did mention that to them. And I also told them we'd be visiting. So I thought that might help move it around.
Good. Haynes Park, it's getting down. I mean, we keep saying it's getting down to a little bit of percentage, but that I think I have not heard from Phil whether they've hung the bathroom fixtures in the building. They were to do that and some painting and some trim work, and that would be it. So I think it's pretty close to being done, but not exactly done. So that should be ending very soon. Grassy Hill. The bridge, as we know, the cost that we got with the new form going to the DOT showed a pretty radical increase in the cost. So we've had the engineer talk about it, but the overall bid the estimate, the first estimate was based on preliminary engineering, whereas the second one is based on more complete final, it's not total final engineering, but much further into the engineering process. And as we heard, some of it pertains to the intersection with Route 1 and a number of other elements. So the construction cost itself from the early preliminary estimate was $490,000, call it $490.5 thousand. The newer estimate is $963.2, so that's a 96% increase. The other items are up, but not in the same magnitude. In conjunction with the construction costs going up, the contingency of 10% nearly doubled as well. So the engineer talked about ways to economize with guardrails and stone treatment and so on and so forth. I'm not sure how much that would save off of the project, but I think we are nearing the end of our engineering phase with Jacobson. I forecast that if we finish out everything that they're supposed to do, we would be into it for about $92,004. So if we said we're not going to do anything more, you'd have the engineering plans all set, ready to go. I'm not sure what the shelf life of the permits is, and as we know, the permit for the Corps of Engineers wouldn't be looked at or permitted for probably a year. So we were thinking of doing it this summer, but at a minimum, if we went ahead and did the project, it would be not till next summer.
So what's the total cost of everything? That's not...
The total cost went from $691,007, let's call it, to $1,226,600. So the town share would go from $345.8 to $613.3. And I haven't had a chance to sit down with Nicole, but I think what we have, obviously we're paying bills from current funds we have set aside, but just kind of doing a quick read, I think if you take what we have left in our carryover, less projected cost to finish the engineering, there'd be about $45,000 left over there. And then in this year's budget, if you subtract the grant from the capital expenditure line, I think there's a net of $246,000 in the budget for that, I hope. So we would have about $289,000 available, if my math is correct. And then if we have to come up with 613.
Well, is that 613 additional, or is it 613
that's the 50,
minus the 2?
That's the 50% of the new number. So I guess you'd have to adjust it. If we spent $92,000, that would be eligible for reimbursement too. We haven't gotten any reimbursement from that. So it might knock it down another $45,000, $46,000, something like that. But between now and doing the bridge, let's say in 2022, we'd probably have to come up with, $280,000, something like that.
So we're $280,000 short of what's already in the budget.
Yeah, don't hold me to these exact numbers, but
say $300,000.
I'd really like to see, I know we've asked this, I'd like to see the numbers. It's really hard to kind of listen to this. It would really be nice
and
to see
this
the performance.
This is again off of an estimate, so until you get bids, this is all
Right. I'm just trying to see how much we have in
yeah, so
hand and how much we need.
Yeah, roughly 300,000 would be probably a number that would take care of things. in addition to what we've already incurred.
So how much do we have? So we're 300 short, so this year's budget, we have to put in another 300, or
Well,
at the time we were talking about
if you did money in the 22 budget, and you did the work in the summer of 22, you may be able to, if some of that expense happened after July 1st, you'd be in a 23 budget. So depending on the timing, you might be able to break it into two parts.
So this upcoming budget, we can budget 150, and the following year we can budget 150 and straddle the
Provided
project.
the work didn't all happen before July 1st, most of it, so.
Will the grant expire by then? Do we know?
Pardon me?
Will the grant expire by then?
The engineer.
I really need to see the paperwork. I really don't know.
The engineer was saying that the DOT seems agreeable to extending the deadline and giving us the 50% of the higher number.
Okay.
But
The
till
bridge
you
is
get,
considered functionally obsolete, correct?
yes,
I mean, I think just taking the money aside, it's been rated poorly. It's not going to get any cheaper. The bridge is defunct. I don't really know that we have an option other than to do the best we can to budget and take advantage of the grant. I saw today that I read today that after 5 years out, the bridge and road repair budget for the state is not guaranteed. So one of our questions when the engineer called in several meetings ago was, do you think that the 50% allocation will still be available? And after reading that, I don't think so. So I'd be hesitant to drop it and wait until we feel like finding 300 or whatever it is then. I think we bite the bullet and fix the bridge.
well, if the decision was to go for it, then you would have to budget it, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah, and it could be, depending on the time, we could talk to the engineer and see, likely, if it started, say, in May and it didn't finish till the end of July or something, you might be able to use that next fiscal year to help finance it. But obviously it is, this larger number is not in the budget, so it'll have to shoehorn in with everything else. So, there'll have to be some trade-offs. So, but I think the bridge itself is structurally good. I think the sidewalls are definitely masonry sitting on top of the bridge deck.
That's the functional obsolescence.
Yeah, and whether that could be if you want to do the whole thing over, you can do it, and it'll last quite a long time. I don't know if there's any interim step. What he was talking about would be to, instead of doing certain kind of walls and so forth, you could do them out of a less expensive product, and that might, I don't know whether you're talking tens of thousands or.
Well, the numbers he showed, it really wasn't saving something huge. It was like total everything. It was like $30,000.
Yeah.
So to make it nicer and more aesthetic, I'd rather spend the $30,000 on a 1.2
Well,
million.
and so I guess when we get to the Board of Finance, we can explore that too, just what's queuing up in the way of capital and so forth. But it's quite a jolt that it would go. The construction costs would be basically 2 times what was originally talked about. So
It's not going to get any cheaper going forward.
yeah.
No, we've already had, and I was surprised when the engineer was speaking to us. I knew of the one repair, but I didn't know there had been several accidents there. So, and we know that there's a safety concern then too. I think I asked do we need to check with Kerma? Is there any concern there? If the town's aware of a possible liability and we shelve a plan, are we under?
Well, I don't think we want to characterize it that the bridge is practically failing. DOT can classify it a 4 and all that stuff, but it was the basic bridge was looked after and made pretty, talking to Macnick and so forth, that work made the bridge pretty solid. And so the stone wall, and then a lot of the money is going for this intersection. We're not 100% sure about the utilities. They talked about moving the utilities, but given the complexity of that, we want to make darn sure that utility move is covered by the utility companies, because I can only imagine what that would be. So I'll verify the numbers with Nicole, what we have on hand, and pro forma out what we would need to come up with. And
well, can you ask the engineer also, is it feasible to straddle this job over 2 years?
I suppose you might say we'd like to have a June start date or something, so you'd be clearly most
22.
Yeah, and you're dependent upon whatever the Corps of Engineer does. I mean, if they take longer, that's not within our control. So, yeah. Okay.
So at some point, will we get a spreadsheet with everything on it?
Yeah, we can show you what we have spent and what we have budgeted for this year, and we can say, okay, this is where we stand right now, and then take this estimate and say, if we did the bridge according to the plan that the engineers developed, we will need to come up with this.
Yeah, because we've asked.
And then you could say, what other contingencies might there be, such as the electricity, the utility movements, and then maybe have we don't want to make any noise like the utilities won't pay for it. I think it seems like they would pay for it, but again, till we get confirmation, you're never sure. Okay, the next item is Ferry Road sidewalks. I spoke with the tree commission, and apparently there is a report from a landscape engineer that looked at the various trees along the sidewalk to comment on what would have to be done. Which trees are in bad shape that should be removed, which trees are in pretty good shape that would have to be removed, because that's where we're going to get some pushback. So I was trying to get the engineer and the tree commission to take a site walk with this report in hand. I haven't seen it as yet, and then we can make some conclusions. You mentioned maybe switching sides for part of it. You might consider what would be the impact of going down, let's see, the south side of the street until Lieutenant River Lane. If you could avoid a bunch of trees. I know when you switch over at Lieutenant, then you keep going, there are some trees that are up on kind of an elevated area there that they are buckling sidewalk too. But at least, because I don't think you could continue the sidewalk down around the corner and then end it down there somewhere. So we'll get some clarity on this. The engineer said that putting this out to bid in April, May time frame, he thought would be a proper time to do it. So I think we need to evaluate these trees and maybe a possible alternate going down the other side, and then start really, because they said time's a wasting here.
We gotta see what, we need some numbers.
Well, yeah, they could supply, he supplied some numbers in support of the grant, but until if there's going to be a lot of tree work.
I like to look at it both ways, with the grant or without the grant, because it might be beneficial us not to even use the grant.
Well,
Like I said, until we see the numbers.
I don't know. I don't think the grant puts on any undue circumstances for us, criteria, but
Who's the engineer?
it's Jacobson. It's let's see, Wade Stevens.
And has he, when do we talk about the size or the width of the sidewalk?
It's 4 feet.
I know you keep saying that, but even per our last minutes, we knew there was a discussion on the town standard is 5 feet.
All I can tell you is that
These are 4.
Pardon me?
These are 4.
I know that the town standard has changed since those were put in.
Really?
Do we get to grandfather?
well,
I mean, that's why we're doing 5 feet in Hartford.
Oh,
yeah.
well, we'll check.
But I think in that
I looked at the planning document.
in that
It says 5 feet.
situation, the 5-foot sidewalk would probably be much more hurtful to the trees than the 4. So 4 is bad enough, and it's something like 3 now. So
I mean, would we have, if it is the town standard, which is in our planning documents, do we have to get?
I asked Wade who, he said he didn't know who the authority is, whether it be Public Works or zoning, but I can imagine that if we have to go to a zoning commissioner, I imagine we would have a pretty good reception because it's 3 now, and
I'll ask Dan tomorrow. I'll give him a call.
yeah. So we got to accelerate that because it's been lagging. Okay. Tantamaheg is the next update. The Harbor Management Commission prepared a summary of its recommendations, so I'll read it. January 12th. Goals: to preserve public access to Tantamaheg Landing, to prescribe orderly use of the site, to respect abutting neighbor private property, to maintain rustic quality, natural appearance, and vegetation on the site. Recommendations: access: retain public and vehicle access via the Tantamaheg Landing driveway down to a clearly defined parking area and designated parking spots at the grassy area of the landing adjacent to the ice house area. Number 2, signage. Multiple recommendations. Reinstall signage Tantamaheg Landing at the entrance near the right-hand pillar. Incorporate on the sign the information "closed at sunset." This time limit is in keeping with other public access areas in the town. Inside the entrance, way behind the front stone pillars at a point where the town land and the entrance to private property split, install a sign that indicates Tantamaheg Landing with an arrow to the right and private drive no entry with an arrow to the left. Add signage on posts at the southern boundary line between the town landing and private property at the junction of the designated parking area on either side of the exit from the private driveway. Private property, no entry. Add signage at the designated parking area for parking spots 1 and 2. Boundaries, number 3. Clearly define the designated parking area adequate for 2 parking spots at the grassy area near the ice house area. Poles on the ground, large rocks, or low fence rails are recommended to delineate the vehicle parking area that takes into consideration adequate parking spot entry, exit angles, taking into consideration the width, depth, and turnaround areas capable of being used for normal-sized vehicles while not having to enter or encroach on the private driveway or lawns. Place a boulder of the off-road access path to the water to prevent motorized vehicles traffic in the narrow lane that leads down to the water. This recommendation is to prevent any degradation to wetlands and watershed erosion. Vegetation, Harbor Management Commission is not recommending any clearings or plantings. The site is to remain natural and rustic and of rustic character. Harbor Management is not recommending any modification or changes to the waterfront areas such as dredging or improvements such as dock or ramps. Water access is to remain in its natural state. Observations. It is an observation, not a recommendation, that the private property owner is the owner of both the ice house and the dam on the adjacent property and therefore is responsible for those structures. The property owners may wish to post signs indicating no trespassing to be able to enforce unwanted incursions on their land. So that is the letter from the Harbor Management. And Mr. Frampton sent in a landing proposal. Essentially, his proposal is that vehicles coming could park up near the stone pillar entry, either inside in an area or outside, more or less in the Town of Mahig Road area, and then people could walk 75 feet down to the landing. If somebody had to drop a kayak off, I guess they could go down, drop the kayak, and return and park the car and walk back down. And he had some photographs of the area there. Did you all get his communication? Yeah? Yeah. And obviously, it's a situation that is unusual, having a landing quite so close to a house as that one is. But so that was the Harbor Management recommendation. And since Mr. Frampton is here, if you all would allow, we might allow him a moment to comment on this, as opposed to waiting for public comment. Would you like to address?
Thank you very much. And I just want to say that we, as I said in the letter to you, that my wife and I very much appreciate all the time that you, Tim and Mary Jo, and a number of members of the Harbor Commission put into this. I'm sorry for all that time. And we certainly think that the Harbor Commission's recommendation is a step in the right direction. And so we are supportive of the idea of moving in that direction. But in the long run, I would submit to you that there's only one solution to this situation that actually realizes the Harbor Management Committee's objective here, which is to maintain both public and vehicular access, but also optimizes the interest of everybody. The people who want to use it for a kayak, the people who want to drive down and look, the people who use it, 99% of the people who walk there, the quality of the place, and our safety and security. There's a way that everybody comes out ahead here, and that is if you simply require the parking places, which are very available, at the top of the lane instead of the bottom. It's easy to park there. Anybody who has to drive a car to the end can drive a car to the end, but it's parking at the end which ruins both the experience for people who walk and involves our safety and security. So everybody's objectives, I think, would be satisfied if the town simply required a couple of good parking places at the top of the lane. Now, I realize that if you decide in the end not to try that for a while, which is certainly an experiment, but to simply go with the Harbor Management Plan's recommendation, then what we would ask is that you accept that and add to it a sign up at the top of the lane where there are two parking places that are perfectly good off the side of the lane but can be enhanced a little bit, and put a sign there and ask people, say, please park here. Because it may be that most people will voluntarily park at the top of the lane and can begin to create then a pattern in which people don't need to and don't want to park in the rather natural place at the end of the lane. So that was our letter to you, and I appreciate you heard it.
Thank you. All right. Anything else on that while we cogitate?
What is it you want this board to do, Tim?
Pardon?
What do you want this board to do?
We have a recommendation, so we could either endorse the recommendation from Harbor Management or make other recommendations. So.
Well, here's some things I was thinking about, because I was kind of unclear from the start on the authority, which board has the authority to make any calls on this. So, under State Statute 1512, the Selectmen of any town bordering upon navigable waters shall cause to be removed all obstructions and structures from the shore, beaches, or other land in such town, adjacent to such waters to which shores, beaches, or other land the public has the right to access, or which the public has been accustomed to use, occupy, or enjoy. And it goes on. So the obstacles placed on Tantahahad Road landing were removed. Unfortunately, the beautiful sign indicating the road to the landing is still missing. The additional challenge here is that the new homeowners of the abutting property feel people in vehicles, especially trucks, are overstaying their welcome on town property and in some cases trespassing on their property by turning onto the part of the road which passes by their home rather than utilizing the town landing road access. This has caused the homeowners to feel unsafe. Appropriately, they recently called the police when this situation occurred. The Harbor Management Commission was good enough to look into the situation, from my understanding, at your request, and they have offered the recommendations which you just read. I wish to personally thank all of the Commission for their service, and I want to thank the public who shared their concerns maturely with the Board of Selectmen in public and were part of the thoughtful discussions. I found that very helpful. The recommendations from the Harbor Management Commission all fall on the town to address the homeowners' concerns about the town property. So the issues are on town property, and all the recommendations fall on the town to address these. These include signage for clear directions to the landing, parking signage for up to 2 parking spaces, and signage indicating no visitation after sunset. I feel that since formal public proceedings have occurred at the request of the First Selectman, the Board of Selectmen now need to provide a formal response of some kind. That's why I asked you, Tim, what you expected. The recommendations of the Harbor Management Commission can and should be considered, but we are the authorizing board. And I would suggest that the town council be asked for an opinion, as I am concerned about setting precedent for other similar geographic locations. If we indeed go forward with a formal statement or policy, I offer 2 additional requests for consideration. One, that the town consider adding a sign that requests, not requires, parking on top, similar to what Mr. Frampton just mentioned to us. And that any signage addressing landing closure, consider stating that this landing closes an hour after sundown. I'm concerned that you may have people down there, particularly at swallow time, and they'll need time to gather up their belongings and leave. I'm not sure why the homeowners haven't yet done this, but I also think that we should encourage the homeowners to put no trespassing signage on the portion of the road people have trespassed on, so people know they cannot go that way. And that's similar to the recommendation from the Harbor Management Commission. I think my point on all of that is that the authorizing body needs to somehow address this in the proper way. The Harbor Management Commission was good enough to do this, but their authority is really the high water mark of Waterford. The town, the Board of Selectmen have authority, landward. And so I was not clear how you were going to take the Harbor Management Commission's recommendation and put it, document it.
Oh, we asked them for a recommendation.
And then how, yes, you did. And then how are you going to put that in a documentation format that the town doesn't set precedent for other similar areas, and the homeowners feel that their concerns were heard. I'm not sure what you plan to do with this. Is it going to be a policy? Is it going to be written as...
No, each site is different.
Memo, or?
Well, this was just for this one in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the one where we suddenly had an issue with. So that's what...
But as you noticed, and we've been getting pictures from the homeowners, they've been sending us shots of other areas that are in similar landings, similar situation. It doesn't have parking. I think we might be setting precedent if we aren't careful. And that's why I suggest we run this by our council.
I don't have a problem running by the council either, but I think this is a nice format. I do agree with you with the sunset closing because of the swallows. I was going to say a half an hour after sunset.
Well, you could say, you could make an exception for that time, but I think we want to make it sunset, and then maybe for that period of time you might relax that for a bit. But
I think it's easier. You're going to get someone out here to see a swallow.
If people take their kayaks out, just say, and they kayak out down by the Lowman, it's going to take them some time after the swallow show to get back, get on ground. And I just don't want those people feeling like they're under the gun. I don't want anyone calling the police on them. That's why I felt an hour would be sufficient for that kind of traffic.
I can agree on the hour.
you could do that with respect to the season for that and not make it all year round.
If you think there's a way you could do that, that's fine.
Well, an hour after sunset in the wintertime is 5:30. So, it very...
Well, I mean, we have the other...
simpler to say that don't say seasonal.
The concern was that people were coming down in the dark, and so...
in the dark's one thing.
One would think that in the winter that by the time it's 5 o'clock, time to go. Now, maybe in the fall when the birds are there, you might have a little leniency, but I don't know. And it whatever is decided upon could be a work in progress. George indicated that if this plan were something we embraced, then if it turned out to be wonderful, then that'd be one thing. If it was still not satisfactory for certain valid reasons, then it could be modified. So I don't think we have to consider that whatever happens is never going to change. It should change based on circumstances. So.
So what do you want to do? You want to change the sunset to... I don't want to have the word sunset. I can say, I'll go with Mary Jo an hour and after, or half an hour. People got to pick up. But you also want people out of there on a timely basis to not bother the neighbors.
Right.
But, to leave it up to seasons, I don't like that. And if you want to refer this to the attorney for a quick little read over, I don't have a problem with that either. But I think this is a good recommendation with the exception of the sunset time.
But how are we well, how is this going to be documented? I mean, what's the process here?
Well, we'd probably come up with something similar to this that's done by the Board of Selectmen, and we'd have to work with the owners about signage. I think we'd want to have nice looking signs, and so the sunset plus a half an hour, did I hear?
1 hour.
1 hour.
Please.
I'll go with the 1 hour.
And then since we're adding signage, I agree that you might as well, why would there be a problem to put a sign up front saying, please park here? I know when I visited the property, I just automatically parked on top and then walked down. I had no problem just
Yeah,
parking there.
we might want to look at I know the area leaving the driveway on the right, there's a bituminous curb. It's kind of close to what might be a stream on occasion. I don't know if it runs all the time or occasionally. But you'd want to make sure there was no issue with creating a parking space if inland wetlands didn't like it.
Yeah, I'm not talking about doing any creation. I'm just a sign. I'm not asking for any
It's a simple
deforesting, just, I agree that you could encourage some people to park there if they know they can park there.
Well, you can't
Then
park there in that spot now because there's a big curve you have to go over, so that wouldn't be any good.
Well, I can tell you, I know he sent some photos. I can tell you exactly where I parked.
But adding a sign is,
Just right in there. I just pulled my car right in there. There was no problem.
Could I make a comment?
Let me see that.
Could I make a comment? I did send photographs of 2 parking places that, we'd be happy to put a little dirt there, a little extra dirt, but Mary Jo parked there, there's 2 perfectly good parking places inside the gate.
This is the picture of the inside.
Room for
Yeah, if that could be, if
Yeah, I'm
that,
not in favor of doing any dirt, making it a parking area, which I think might lead to then making it a formal parking area. I'm just talking about, to your point, that if we put a sign there, people might know that they could park there instead of down the road. In which case, also, if there was somebody that did have trouble walking, they would have the option of parking down below. Because what they wouldn't if somebody was already parking there. I'm not married to this idea, but I think less is more. And I think just if I knew, for example, that I could park there, I would, and then I'd walk down with my kayak, or I'd go birding, or I'd just go with my dog, and it'd be fine.
there's an area inside the gate on the right that might be suitable for parallel parking. Not that one. That's outside the gate. The next picture.
I was parked right inside the stone wall there.
I think that's going up to the other houses. I think the subject driveway's to the left into the property.
well, that's here or there. We're just talking about putting a sign.
It was just, I was just inside the brick wall, and it was fine. And I think if we're going to be looking at where we're going to put signage, I'd like to request that we consider putting a friendly signage, like the owner had suggested, please park here. It doesn't preclude parking below, but it just gives people the knowledge that they can park there. And then the other third part was, I really would like to encourage the homeowner to put a no trespassing sign on their road so that people do know that they can't go that way. And if they do go that way, that ends up right at their house. And I can see where that would be.
Well, the private drive no entry is a no trespassing sign, and down below it says private property no entry as well.
We don't have to write it down, but we suggest to him.
Yeah, it's just a suggestion, and it's something they're doing on their property. We are taking on the expense and time and effort to do all of this on our property. So it's a suggestion to the homeowner, because they have had these feelings of being unsafe, and there have had people that have doubled over that way to look at their house. put a no trespassing sign there.
And another thing I thought about was saying no trailers. Because if you were to go down with a kayak on a trailer for some reason, you wouldn't be able to turn around very well. So might have that up front too. We don't want to make a blizzard of signs, so we have to be cautious about that. But we'll work it over a little bit. And
I think you're just keeping it simple with this. I like this. Change it to an hour after sunset. I mean, the signs, you can take it up on himself, on his own property. But, this is dedicated to that launch or access alone, not, every other access and boat launch in town is different. So this one goes with this access. We don't want to blanket everybody.
No,
right now.
I think that's why I think less is more, and that's why I was concerned. How are we addressing this? Right now we have nothing, and that's actually worked out pretty well for 400 years. So now all of a sudden we're now going to document this. I'm concerned. There's been discussion that somewhere along the line it said all our landings say closed at sunset, and they do not. Pilgrim's Landing does not have signage for that. There's none. I took pictures. So we just have to be.
Use that after hours. That's what I mean. A lot of boaters have to use that after hours. They're coming back in from their moorings.
So somewhere along the line there's.
That's why they want to keep this one to this. And this is what the agreement was between this and the neighbors.
And where do we keep this sort of decision? Where this document? Where does it go so that the next homeowner can revisit this? For example,
I think each landing can be viewed as a separate, distinct situation. It's not a cookie cutter.
Where is
Right,
it kept
like this.
in Town Hall? Where do we keep this? Is this on the land records? How does this process work?
I think it's just an agreement between this neighbor and the town for now, personally.
Is it verbal though? Are we having sign it? Are the neighbor signing it? Are you signing it? And where does it, is this house?
Well, I think it would be a communication to the owners, and then they would have a copy, and we would have a copy in Town Hall. It wouldn't necessarily be recorded on the land records. I think that's a bit much, but and if down the road we decided it was needed adjustment, we could tinker with it, I think, as we've said multiple times, when they came to be the owners, it was after over 2 years of nobody living there, and it was during the bird migration. So it was kind of the two unfortunate circumstances that the public was used to not having any supervision. Now that they're there, I think it's going to change. I think Diana was there for a lot of years, and I don't think she called up to report a lot of negative things down there. So hopefully they'll start settling down. But we can talk this over a bit, and then we can start drafting something, and then we'll talk about signage and get this moving.
Okay, but you will run it by our legal counsel too?
Say?
You're going to run it by town council too?
I think when we finish up with the draft, we can blow it by them. I don't want to turn this into a great big legal thing, but if there's anything that a lawyer might see that, gee, you ought to think about this or that, but keep it simple, hopefully. But that would be a step, I think.
Okay.
Okay, the next item is the police contract. We are going to have the union come in tomorrow for signing, as well as AFSCME, so that will conclude that, hopefully. And that's all I have on that. The annual town meeting, we have the agenda here, which thanks for signing it. Let's see. This one doesn't look like, is this a copy, I guess? This is a copy. So we're queuing up for that to be here. And it's going to be a little awkward, I guess, with the logistics. I asked Michelle and Lauren about how we might work it, and we can't have this camera be kind of a WebEx camera, unfortunately. So we will have people here, and we'll have the people on the phone being able to listen to what's going on, but there will not be a video from the town hall here. People on the phone will be able to see each other and hear us. But I've got no farther with getting video in here. So that's where we are with that.
How will the vote take place?
It'll be a voice vote. I don't think we can possibly, go through the machinations of trying to count hands. I don't think any of the items to be considered are controversial. And we can't do ballots or any of that stuff, so I don't know how you'd handle that. I suppose if you had something, Michelle could probably count noses on the screen, and we could count noses in here, but short of that, that's all you could do. I think if the voice vote is lopsided, then the moderator could handle it. So I think I think this appeared in Saturday's newspaper. I'll have to get my newspaper and confirm that.
So we're going to be here then?
Well, you don't have, it's a town meeting, so it'll be the town clerk, the moderator.
How it's going to work here.
What?
I'm still kind of confused at how this thing's going to work. So if someone from the public wants to come here,
they will come here
they
up
come
to
into this room.
Up to 25 people, including the table. If the selectmen want to be on the call, you can do that. I mean, the select people don't have a role in the proceedings. You got the moderator and the town clerk and myself. So if you'd rather be using the telephone, that's fine. The vote will be, for those items that need a vote, will be a voice vote.
Okay.
But let me know if you're going to be here.
Oh, I will. I'll just kind of, get people asking questions. So
And,
I'm trying to make sure get the right
we'll be
answer.
able to accommodate, as I say, 25 people, I think is the threshold.
That's total, including the participants.
Yeah. And I suppose if we had more than that, you could have people out in the hall type of thing. It's not easy, but
Well,
that's
we really had a huge turnout anyway, unless,
Yeah,
well, you never know.
it seems to me like the most popular things, usually Citizen of the Year, and if you do that first,
that's what we're doing. Yeah.
those people might leave, freeze up
That's
space.
that's what we did. Yeah.
Do you think you'd like Chris and I maybe to be in another room in case you would need anything? We're up in upstairs hall, or meeting room, not in this room to allow for more people.
Well, we can also figure that out towards the end of the week, see what the turnout, you gotta have an idea of how many people might come. And
Yeah.
if you need
Well,
not to be here, to free up
I
two
think
more
you
spots,
can. I think you can
I
put
don't have a problem
additional.
calling it.
You can put additional people out there if need be. We could have some chairs at the ready just in case, because it's a separate room and therefore it has a different occupancy. And after that, then I guess you say, well, you have to limit it.
Did the attorney say we didn't need to have a hearing then for the new ordinance?
What?
For affordable housing before the actual vote to approve?
I'm not planning on it. I didn't ask that question, but on either one. I know we did the modification of the voting location. So that didn't, we weren't advised on that one, so.
All right, have the ordinance been on the website so people can look at them? Are they up?
This is posted, yes. This is the whole text of both, yeah. Yep. All right. And under new business, we talked before about the Rogers Lake O&M operations and maintenance. When I looked at it, it's got a lot of good detail. The one thing that I did not see that I think is quite important to be in here, at the bottom of the first page, it says ownership and responsibility. And the last sentence in that paragraph 1 says the responsibility for the operation of the sluiceway lies with the town of Oline and its designees. In the list, well, let's see. On page number 5, it talks about an appendix. The following pages include useful information for the Rogers Lake Dam operations and maintenance. And when you turn the page, there's a list of people. It's not labeled as an appendix. And I'm not sure whether the pictures are to be included as appendices, and the graph and so forth. So when looking at the list of officials, there is nothing in there that says sluiceway gate operator or words to that effect. So I think one of the important things is to identify that there is a sluiceway gate operator and a name. And you have a lot of officials in town, and it needs updating with respect to the resident trooper and so forth. So this would have to be changed fairly often, unfortunately. But I would urge that this be labeled Appendix 1, and maybe first off, there's a sluiceway gate operator with a name and a phone number, because that's the person who we rely upon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is exactly the kind of feedback Mr. Overfield and Hastings were looking for from this board. Any suggestions like that? Mm-hmm. And also to get confirmation that this board agrees that the Rogers Lake Authority is the primary owner of this document, and that perhaps they're the ones that suggest who the sluiceway gate operator is.
Now, along that line, in that same sentence at the bottom of page 1, do we want to say responsibility operation of sluiceway slide gate lies with the town of Oline, comma, the Rogers Lake Authority and their designees, or do we want to keep it town?
I think, and again, that's a question I would throw by our attorneys, just to make sure.
I could ask Dennis too, I guess.
Mm-hmm. This is a low-hanging fruit, but I wouldn't put the name of the resident state trooper. I would say resident state trooper and leave the number. Keep changing that.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere where you could just put the position and a phone number as opposed to the name is probably more efficient.
Yeah, this is a lot to keep up with, but it's a good list. But
it's a great list. And the RLA engineers that drafted this are actually testing their procedures. So, we have confidence that this material is correct. So the other question I asked is, do we feel that the observations and requirements that are requested in this document should be documented in some way? And does our insurance company need that? And so that I would also ask if we needed to check with Kerma on this.
Yeah, I think our dams are specifically insured.
And then the other part was that this should be reviewed alongside the Nathan Jacobson's plan.
Yeah, the EOP.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So it sounds like there's consensus anyway that we think the RLA should own this O&M.
I agree.
I do too. I really thank them for doing this. It's a lot of work, a lot of detail.
They're very thorough.
It's very thorough.
Yeah, learned a lot.
So can we tell them, or will you tell them, Tim, that you'll run this by our attorney too?
I'll give Dennis a call and ask him about those 2 points. Do you have any other comments on it?
I gave one to them already, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Somewhere it said line, and it was supposed to be old line. So they could just do a word search and fix that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then we have come to the moment for the public comment, so I will unmute the telephone.
All participants are being asked to unmute themselves.
Members of the public on the phone, would anybody wish to make a public comment? All right, thank you.
All participants.
We come to other business. Does Selectmen have anything else to add here?
I do not. I'm very joking. On the table.
Yes, I have a few things.
If you could push that mic the other side, because I really...
The first question I have is, were you able to get back to Michael Hansen?
If you could just push it a little further. For some reason, my position here, or my deafness, just doesn't work with that thing.
Patty, can you hear me? Oh, she can't respond. Okay. All right. Have you had any contact, any information or feedback from Michael Hansen? He was the fellow that wanted to purchase 54 Grandview.
Grandview?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I spoke to him, and I indicated that we need to get an 824 referral to planning. We need to get an appraisal, or he needs to get an appraisal. I said I'd try to get a couple of names. And I also recall that we talked about Roger Davis, so I want to ask whether he might have he's already acquired at least one, if not two parcels from the town with his property in West Shores. So if he has eyes on anything there, because he made a comment about it in the past. So if he wanted to get going on something, we could do the both. So planning will do the 824. The adjacent property is pending sale, the abutter on the other side of the lot from where he is. So it's difficult to know whether the abutter would also have an interest in it. Because probably the fair thing to do would be to say, this parcel, we're considering selling the parcel for a price, and this landowner is offered to pay, well, let's say he is offering to buy it, then I suppose in fairness you would say, have you an interest in it? And if not, then I think it's pretty safe to proceed. So I think we need a little clarity on how that should be handled.
Okay.
So I think depending on timing, we have the May budget meeting, it might be something that could be incorporated at that time.
Okay. You left me a note, so I just want to follow up. Then I know that there was a press release put out, but I just thought there might be people in the public that haven't seen the website, but it's kind of awesome. The Old Lyme Police Department submitted the application and letters to Georgetown Law Active Bystandership for Law Enforcement program called ABLE. And that's the program that some information was shared with the Board of Selectmen maybe last fall. The Old Lyme Residence Trooper has continually strived to develop a partnership between Old Lyme police officers and the community. The ABLE program is just one more of those programs that would enhance the relationship with the community. So they received several letters from community leaders, government leaders, police officers, and recommendations for the police department to join the partnership. Project ABLE Train-the-Trainer will be provided at no cost to law enforcement agencies, and this will not become a cost burden to the citizens of Old Lyme. So it's very exciting, and I want to thank Matt Weber and the troop for applying.
I guess if the police are approved, it would be almost a first in Connecticut if they get the nod first.
Awesome.
Yep.
I received an email, I don't know if you guys did, from Mrs. Gatalka on Library Lane. This is not about her property, it's about water at the end of Library Lane.
Where on the end? Which end? Beginning or the end?
Closer to,
Let me see the picture.
closer to Lime Street, whatever end you consider that,
All right.
by the
Yeah.
bridge.
No, this is the one across from her house.
Yeah, but it's...
This is the fire well.
Yeah, this is the fire
By
well.
the fire well, by the water.
Yeah.
And she feels that...
Who's she?
Well, this was that extreme high tide the other day where it came over the road. It happens a few times a year.
So she is
That's the way
asking...
it is.
She is asking...
So,
I don't know who-
have
I
you-
did talk to Ed about that. There's a puddle there that happens from time to time. After it was paved, they did have a runoff there. One other neighbor, without mentioning names, made us think about the runoff, so that got filled in because they didn't want sediment going in. So now we get a puddle. So, which neighbor you want to make happy to is the question. But that's the high tide that came over the road from, that happens a few times a year for, I've been there 52 years, so.
Okay.
Would that be satisfactory just to have a little cut through the...
That would be awesome, but like I said, one
it's sheet
person
flow.
about 10 years ago made a big stink and it got filled in. So it should have a little, little runoff going down there with some riprap and to keep the water from flowing down, and it'll
'Cause there's
go out with
also-
the tide like everything else.
Closer, further into Library Lane, up near the end of that low stone wall where Weiner used to live,
Mm-hmm.
there are ruts and so forth which water collects in.
Well,
That
someone
too
just ran
could
off
be-
the road on that one.
Yeah, but I
They
mean-
should just fill that in.
If water comes down that side of the street during a rain event, that might be helpful to have that leak off into the same sort of thing with some riprap and stuff going.
If you want, but I mean, that's just happened because someone ran off the road there.
Now, have you noticed any further leaking from the property onto,
No, I have not.
was she contacting you?
No,
Did
but
she
I did
speak
get-
about that?
No, this was from the water, this is on the, from the.
That was the high tide last week.
Yeah, that's the other. The other thing I had was the letter you sent to us from Tom Metcalf regarding their property. So,
And Metcalf's heard anything back?
Well, my question is the water still leaking from their property across the road?
I do not know. This is a different issue.
I understand.
Yes, I have not asked.
But I think if the water has ceased leaking across the road, that's quite interesting. And I think we need to monitor that. I mean, if the water stopped coming across the road, I don't think we have to pay for the engineer to do a lot of studying. It stopped, you know. So I think we need to monitor it and maybe interrogate the landowners and say, ask their opinion. And if it seems to have stopped, then I'd like to know why. But because we spent a lot of time and effort on this thing, and if you know the only variable is the pipe that was going out of the basement wall. And after we highlighted the pipe, if the water has stopped, is there a cause and effect? So maybe I'll ask her to comment as to whether it's still welling up under that bush and coming across the road.
Okay. This is a concern I shared with Tim, and you gave me a contact for Connecticut Water. When they did the new water service on Hartford Avenue, basically by the property, I think it's Billy Vaquito's.
Is this Michaela?
No. This is by Vaquito's, so what is it? 80, I didn't blow it up enough. 80, maybe 81 Hartford Avenue. Michaela's is on Portland, so this is Hartford Avenue. They came in and did the laterals. This is the new sidewalk, and the Vaquito property had this drainage thing in the new sidewalk. Anyway, when they did the work for the new laterals, you can see it cracked right up across two portions of new sidewalk.
Is this at the Lemon Ice, or is this up at Fields? Did you say Heidi Field? No.
No,
Okay, so this is down near Vachetto's.
that's right. So
And did you speak to somebody at Connecticut Water?
I took the name of the person.
Yeah, Chris.
And
Yeah.
I copied you on my text to him with the information. I've never heard back.
So what's the issue again?
When they put the lateral under the sidewalk, it may have cracked.
Well, it did crack.
I'm sure they're
It
going to
wasn't
say
there
may
before.
have.
It wasn't there before. And I was just hoping they'd get back to us, or that there's something in the contract with them, or Mizzy, whoever did that, to repair the sidewalks.
And that's at number 81?
I'll check the address. I couldn't read my small picture there, but it's about 81.
80 something, I can't
Yeah.
even see it with my cheaters.
Okay.
That would be
Well, so
South.
Chris Wojcik, I think that's the name.
Yes, that's what you gave me.
He is in receipt of this problem, and he seems pretty responsive. Hopefully.
Do you know if our contract with them has any?
Well, he's the one that I dealt with when we received that payment. So
Okay.
I don't know him other than by talking on the phone once, but he seemed.
But do you think our contract with the company requires them to fix anything that?
Well, one would
Well-
hope. I mean, if they admit
I would
that
think that they'd
crack.
have some sort of warranty.
Kind of,
You know,
yeah, it's kind of hard to
It's
not.
not even been a year, you know? So, Or,
Well, it's been a year for our,
no, but since
For
they
them.
drilled, you know,
yeah, this just
Yeah.
happened.
This was this fall.
Yeah,
right.
so,
So the ball's in his court, so he's going to respond to you, is he?
Well, and it's been
or
documented,
you,
so
because I copied you on it too. So,
Well,
you asked me to, so,
okay, well, we'll see. If we'll give him a reasonable time, and if we don't hear, we can ring him and see what's going on.
okay. That'd be great. Last minute on these. I'm again asking for both of you to sign the resolution declaring racism as a
You got to
public
push that
health.
mic again, unfortunately.
I'm asking that you sign the resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. I'm again acknowledging the fear and uncertainty and uncomfortable feelings about racism existing in Old Lyme. I acknowledge your resistance to a substantive discussion on the resolutions provided. I recognize that white privilege allows us to focus on the status quo and not look beyond Lime Street. But it's unjust to ignore the many people who have spoken passionately in person to this board in favor of signing the resolution, to the many who have written the board in support of the resolution, to ignore CCM's support of the resolution, and to ignore our neighboring shoreline towns who have signed on to work towards this justice. I ask you to lead with love, not fear, to do the right thing and the just thing. Please stand up and do the work. Our world and our town need healing more than ever. This is a good first step. Please sign.
Can I get a copy of that at a time? Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no other business, it is 5:57. We could say the magic words.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Moved second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I gotta be back here in an hour and a half.
Mary Jo, what's the overall, I wouldn't say agenda or whatever of your friends on Library Lane? Because that water, especially up. You shut it off.
Yep. Out here. No, that's all. That's not.
Look, get towers. Hold on. Well, I mean,